Hi, so our topic was under measuring crime. My name is Sophia Lee.
And I'm Savannah Godfrey.
And our prompt was, what are victimization surveys? How do they answer some of the problems of official crime reports, such as those from the UCR and NIBRS? And what are limitations of relying on victimization surveys?
Some of what we're going to be talking about is what is the UCR, its background and definitions, what are some of its limitations, and does it get all of the data?
What is the NCVS and its history and characteristics, and some benefits and limitations of the National Crime Victimization Survey?
UCR is short for the Uniform Crime Reporting System. Some background of the UCR is, in 1930, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, IACP, surveyed local police agencies to create a crime statistics program. Knowing some crimes wouldn't be as well reported as others, they focused on 7 types that would be prevalent, serious, and well reported to the police. They were homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, and motor vehicle theft. According to Biederman, Part 1 offenses include criminal homicide, forcible rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, and since 1978, arson. Part 2 is all other offenses. The details retained from each of these include weapon, offender, and victim characteristics and circumstances of murders, the type of weapon and type of premise in robberies, and the time and premise type, residential or non-residential, of burglaries. Once the rules were outlined, departments would need to score offenses using the following 4 rules: hierarchy rule, crimes against persons versus crime against property, the hotel rule, and jurisdictional guidelines. These rules made sure an offense was not counted twice, whether that be because of 2 jurisdictions, making sure each person versus person crime was counted, and persons v. property counted as once. Once all of this was accounted for and checked by state departments and then by the federal government, the UCR data would be published as Crime in the United States. This data was released annually, normally around August or September, and it gives Part 1 and Part 2 offenses along with information on law enforcement personnel. In the early 1980s, law enforcement called for a change to the UCR that could be more appropriate for the 21st century. 3 phases followed. Phase 1, examining all aspects of the current program, which would include objectives, intended audiences, data content, reporting procedures, quality controls, publications, and user services. Then Phase 2, looking at the alternative formats for the new UCR. This phase ended in 1985 with a draft called Blueprint for the Future of the Uniform Crime Reporting Program. The draft wanted to move from summary reports to incident-based reporting. It had 2 tiers, with one being for all the agencies currently involved, only incidents-based. The second would be more detailed and for agencies serving populations of over 100,000. The extra information in Tier 2 would be type of victim, victim characteristics, victim-offender relationship, use of force or weapon, type and nature of injury, time, type of location, and residence status of victim. The new system would allow for multiple offenses and not use the hierarchy rule to determine which one to use. Then Phase 3, which would be the action of the new system. To do this, steps would have to be taken and new offense definitions would have to be written, one being tested in one state and it would move on. The National Incident-Based Reporting System, otherwise referred to as NIBRS, was born. But who does this help? It helps the FBI, other police departments around the country, and the general public looking for trends and data on crimes. And according to the FBI, the UCR, and the National NIBRS, they would provide law enforcement with data for use in budget formulation, planning, resource allocation, assessment of police operations, and etc. to help address the crime problem at various levels. But even this had its limitations. Some of the limitations were the large percentage of crimes that were reported that never led to an arrest, and the many populations that would be more likely to be arrested for the same behaviors as committed by other populations. Many crimes were underreported for factors such as fear of law enforcement, being involved in criminal activities themselves, questions of citizenship, and trauma cases such as rape. And crimes that aren't reported can't make it into the system to be added to this database.
Okay, so on to the next section. What is the NCS, the National Crime Survey, or as it's known today, the National Crime Victimization Survey? So it started as a response to inaccurate statistics that came from the Uniform Crime Report, and it was started under the President's Commission of Law Enforcement and the Administration of Justice in 1965. This unreported statistics are known as the dark figure of crime. There are high rates of crime which are not reported to or detected by criminal justice agencies and are therefore not reported or reflected in official statistics. As you can see in the picture, it's like showing the top of the iceberg is what crime we know is occurring, and there's still a lot of crime that we are not reported that's still going on. This image is from the United Nations, and it's showing why we need both victimization surveys as well as police recorded crime data. The graph shows the overlap of statistics found in both police recorded crime data, such as the UCR and NIBRS, and victimization surveys, and then the additional statistics that both surveys provide. There was a lack of accurate information on the amount of and distribution of crime. The numbers that were brought up from police crime reports were often criticized for only representing a small fraction of the events occurring in society, which might be considered criminal. Many crimes which occur are not reported to the police, which led to the need for self-reports and the use of sample survey methodology. This graph shows the disparities between the actual crime occurring, in this case sexual assault, all the way up to those who are actually held in custody for sexual assault. At the top, you can see the actual incidence of sexual assault is unknown because not all of the crimes are actually reported. But from what is reported, which is about 143,900 cases, only about 27,000 of those are reported to the police, or 18%. Only 12.6% is actually recorded by the police. And from that, only 1.3% is actually sent to the court system, or only 0.9% are actually proven guilty. And from that, only 0.7% are actually put in custody. So from what we see of people who were put in custody, there's actually a huge amount of people that are actually being assaulted sexually that we don't know about. So here's some numbers that I got from the National Crime Victimization Survey website. There's about 150,000 households are surveyed from this report, which covers about 240,000 total people, and they only survey people above the age of 12. Some things that are in the report, like some types of crime that they cover in the report are rape, robbery, assault, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, and vandalism. Detailed info about each victimization incident is recorded, as well as the characteristics of the offender insofar as the victim can report them. Some objectives of the National Crime Victimization Survey are to develop detailed information about the victims and consequences of the crime, to estimate the numbers and types of crime not reported to the police, to provide uniform measures of selected types of crime, and to permit comparisons over time and types of areas. Now for some benefits and limitations of the NCVS. Some benefits are that information from these surveys would allow for the examination of topics that would otherwise be overlooked. These topics include who was victimized by different types of crimes and how often, the consequences of victimization and injury and financial loss, and also the willingness of victims to report crimes to the police. If these types of surveys were utilized, they would provide accurate and timely estimates of the incidences of crime, which could be used to compare and assess statistics over time. They are also more accurate than annual surveys, as participants are able to report incidents in the past 40 days. It also reduces the dark figure of crime, as I discussed earlier, and there was a high response rate to the survey. With between the years of 1993 and 1998, there was a response rate as high as 96%. And now for the cons. Some limitations of the original field study in the 60s that they ran into were the choice of the reference period, which means the respondents to the survey had varying abilities to recall their experiences accurately. It seemed to be dependent on how long the period of time the respondents were asked to recall was. The longer the period of time, the harder it was for respondents to recall accurate information of the events. Another limitation was temporal displacement, which means respondents tended to report incidents occurring as later or earlier than they actually did. And another limitation was making sure that all respondents were accommodated appropriately. This problem meant that not all members of the population that they tried to get to survey could speak the language well, or were considered competent, or were considered incompetent, which is the wording that was used in the article that we read. I don't really know exactly what they mean by incompetent. I assume they mean like people with disabilities. But they said that they needed methods. Methods needed to be included to get information from these populations, as well as they are victims as well. Another limitation is the limited sample. The NCBS does not track crime that impacts American youth. As I said, the survey does not report victimization incidents that occur to those under the age of 12. The NCBS does a great job of providing estimates of crime victimization at a national level, but it's not so good at reporting them at a regional level or state level. Another limitation is that the response rate, although it's high, it is steadily decreasing, and today it's at about a 73% respondent rate. And finally, another limitation is that it could be a bigger sample size and we can get more accurate information, but unfortunately, due to budgetary reasons, it is the size that it is. And that concludes our presentation.
Here
Thank
are
you.
our citations.